Welcome to the Grow Your Business and Grow Your Wealth podcast with Gary Heldt. Gary is an expert in helping business owners put together a plan that will provide a better future for their businesses, themselves, and their families. On the podcast, Gary interviews other professionals who share his vision, and together they share secrets and strategies any business owner can use to build a better financial foundation for your business and your life.
Welcome to the podcast. Today, our guest is Ryan Paquin with First Home Mortgage, who's a branch manager and mortgage consultant and has been doing this for about 20 years now. Good morning, Ryan.
Morning.
So, tell me, what made you want to pursue a career in the mortgage industry?
Yeah, it was kind of just happened. I was in the World Trade Center on 9/11, living up in New York, and my wife's from down in Maryland, so she's like, we're moving to Maryland. So I said, okay, let's go down. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And she actually introduced me to the gentleman that she had a summer job with, and actually did my mortgage up in New Jersey. So I interviewed with him, and he kind of gave me the lowdown of what the mortgage industry was about, pretty briefly, and I just jumped right in. And it's been nearly 20 years.
So what is it about the mortgage industry that you like?
It changes every day. There's something different. You get to work with, kind of similar to what you do, is you have different people you're working with constantly. No 2 days are the same. So there's a lot of variety. I work with great people. I have a branch of about 25 people in it, and, going to work every day with people that you like makes it easy, certainly. But just having the ability to have an industry that changes constantly. So you have to stay on top of it. It's never boring, and you have to consistently be willing to learn new things. So it's fun. I like it. I actually love it.
So, you just said that, constantly learning new things. So what is it that you know now that you wish you knew when you first started in the mortgage business?
One, it's a heck of a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. But no, I mean, just in the last 60, 90 days, I feel like I've learned so much more about mortgage-backed securities and the way economics plays into pricing out an interest rate, and what the Fed does, how much impact that has on mortgage rates and liquidity, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and what the agency's role is. That's all, not that I didn't know what that was prior to this, but I feel like I had to really deep dive to understand how things were going to be impacted every time the Fed made a move. So that part of it, the back end side of the business, is what I've learned most recently. But it's something different every day. It could be guidelines changing. It could be new programs, understanding, how the state of Maryland has put into, like, a student loan program came out a couple of years ago to help clients pay off their student loan. I had to learn how to master that program, so when people called me, I knew what I was talking about. And that's the kind of thing that changes every day, which is great.
Right. So what are some of the questions that, because again, you talked about, how things keep changing and things like that, but what are some of the things that the clients aren't asking you that they really should be asking you, when they're applying to get a mortgage or preparing themselves, to buy their first home?
Yeah, so we actually take a very educational approach when consulting our clients. We want to teach them everything they need to know about having a mortgage and owning a home. A lot of what we do is education based. So, when you have a client that comes in, it's a first time home buyer, and they have no idea what that means, right? They just, get me my loan and give me some down payment assistance, and I have a house. Well, there's a lot more involved with that, right? So we don't want clients moving into their house poor. So we do a lot of what you do with budgeting and helping people understand what their cash flow is going to look like. It's really, there's a gap in our education system that doesn't teach people the basics of home ownership and budgeting and what a mortgage is and how your credit works. a lot of education we teach is on credit, and how to get good credit. So, but yeah, it's every day we're teaching people what it means to own a home and how much it costs and what to expect down the road.
You mentioned being house poor. What do you mean by being house poor?
Well, so, it's very easy to get a loan. The guidelines are actually pretty loose from a debt to income ratio perspective, right? So if you make $5,000 a month, in most cases, they're going to lend you up to $2,500 to $2,750 a month in monthly debt, right? So 50 to 55% of your gross income, they let you borrow on a monthly basis. And that's how you determine what your sales price will be. So if somebody moves into a house and they have a $2,750 debt load, right? Maybe that's their car payment, student loans. If something happens, water heater, furnace, or their car breaks down, something happens, they're not going to have that extra cash on a monthly cash flow basis to fix it, right? So they better have some reserves when they move into the property if they plan on having, or they better have an opportunity to earn more, right? In a short period of time, they're looking at an increase in pay. So yeah, it's that kind of stuff where they don't realize how expensive it is once you're in the house, and they don't realize they're going to be house poor, that all of their money is going to be going towards a mortgage payment and maybe some groceries. And then you have that surprise bill that comes up, or maybe that electric bill is higher in the summer because you have, the AC cranking, and they don't realize that it's going to be a little bit more expensive in different months than it is in others.
Right. I like, when you were just talking there and you talked about helping them put together a budget, obviously from my side of things, I'm always telling people to put together a budget so then that way they can plan, because if you don't have that budget, you can't plan. In talking about putting the reserves to the side and stuff like that, that's something that I'm constantly preaching, especially to people that are young and right out of college and things like that, because they don't have the experience with it. So it's great that the education and stuff like that is something that you're doing with these homeowners. So what are some of the clients' biggest fears in going into a mortgage, and what do you do to help alleviate some of those fears that they have?
When we first get a client, there's still this misconception that it's very difficult to get a loan and that they'll never qualify, or that they're going to need 20% down to buy a house, right? So the biggest fear is, I'm not going to qualify. I don't know why I'm trying to do this, but I'm going to try. And the fact of the matter is, it's 3% down to buy a house, and debt to income ratio is really all we're looking at. Credit, debt to income ratio. And do you have the 3% down, or can you get a gift for the 3% down, or can you use a special program for the 3% down? So the fear is credit based, and I don't have enough money. And then once they kind of understand the process and they're pre-approved and they're out house hunting, the speed with which the process happens. So once you get that contract, you're in your home in 30 days, and that is daunting to people. They're like, oh my goodness, what did I just do? I want to buy a home, but it's like, oh, this is moving too fast. So they have that fear of like, reality is about to kick in. I'm about to have a mortgage payment. But if you come from an education standpoint and you teach people what to expect and you really lay down proper expectations from day one, I think you help alleviate a lot of those fears, especially credit-based fears.
So, lots of times, we find, on, TV, the internet and things like that of these companies that are out there that are promoting mortgages and, where they don't have a professional like you. What is it that's great about having a professional like you to help someone as compared to just going online and trying to get a mortgage on your own?
Yeah. So, a few Super Bowls ago, we all learned that you can push a button and get a mortgage, right? And that was good and bad in that it opened up technological advances in our industry. But it was bad in that the expectation was it was super easy to just go online. And over time, what's happened is a lot of people are kind of they want a mortgage professional because they need their handhold. They need to be educated. They want to understand the process, and they want to understand the different programs. So when you go to one of the internet lenders, they're not actually required to be licensed. So there could be a customer service representative that's just kind of pushing a button and going through the process with you, but doesn't necessarily understand their craft. As a correspondent lender, as a direct lender like we are, I have to be licensed in every single state I do business in. So I have to take a test and continuing education for every single state. And it varies from state to state what those costs are, what those laws are, what the requirements are to hold a license, what the requirements are to get a mortgage. And so we're just, I guess, a little bit more educated on what we're doing. And, a lot of the state of Maryland programs, all of them, you actually have to be signed up with the state as a lender. And most of these big internet lenders are not. None of them are. So you can't go to, one of the big internet lenders and say, hey, I want to get down payment assistance. They don't have it. It just doesn't, it's a plain vanilla type of loan is what they do. And that's it. You're 25% down, and you have good credit, they'll get you a loan. It's fine. I actually went through the process with one of them just to see what my competition was doing. And it's all about systems. It's just follow up, and it's relentless, and they don't leave you alone. But there's no real connection with anybody. It's different people calling me every time. And I'd rather have personal connection with my clients and walk them through that entire process. You feel really good about that when you can help somebody that doesn't think they can buy a home to then get into a home 30, 45, 60 days later. It's just, there's meaning to that. So you don't get that when you just shop around online.
Right. Can you give me a recent example or whatever of a client that you helped that was, again, an issue that they thought was quite daunting, type thing, but you were able to kind of help them out, and what was the outcome?
Yeah. So good example. We had a client that her husband's disabled, and they came to me, didn't qualify for what they wanted. I worked with them for about 2 years. And it was a great lesson in persistence because the client was just relentless. She was, I'm going to buy a house. I don't care what anybody tells me. And I'll be honest, I was like, this is going to be tough. This is going to be really tough. I don't know if this is going to happen. And, but she fixed her credit. We told her exactly what she needed to do to get credit ready. And that took a little time. And then while we were waiting, the state of Maryland opened up a disability program called the Home Ability. And what they did is they provided 25% of the purchase price in down payment assistance, which freed up, a massive amount of buying power. And that is to cover down payment and closing costs. So she moved into a house $100,000 greater in sales price than we ever thought she was going to qualify for. And got the 0% mortgage, the second mortgage, to cover the down payment and closing. And she bought a dream home. I mean, she was stoked, and her husband and kids. So yeah, that story sticks with me all the time because it taught me a lesson in persistence and not giving up, and just understanding that if I didn't have that program, if I didn't understand the program, she wouldn't have bought a home. It's just she was underqualified just on her income. So that was a phenomenal outcome.
That's great. I know you work with a variety of different people, different issues. This is an example of somebody that with disabilities that you've helped. I know you have some high net worth clients, and some that come to you that creditworthiness may be questionable. What's the most important thing that you've learned with dealing with this, large variety of different people?
Yeah, I mean, no two clients are alike. You can't put people in a box. Every single client we consult has to have an individualized, personalized plan of attack, right? Like you said, it could be a $2 million, it could be a $60,000, bond loan where they're getting down payment assistance. It's just, we have to put individual processes in place for each person. And it could be a matter of getting credit ready. It could be a matter of getting the down payment and closing costs that they need. Everybody's different. That's why I love my job, because it's a puzzle. It's a new puzzle every time you talk to somebody.
So, kind of piggybacking on that. So when you start, kind of start the process with the client, what are your first steps that you start doing with them?
Yeah, so we ask a series of questions up front just to kind of get the basics of where they want to live and, how do they think their credit is, kind of get a feel for how they feel. And then we have them go through the pre-approval application process so that we can get some details that will help us determine what programs they need and lay out that roadmap to home ownership. So that application takes about 10-15 minutes to fill out. It's very detailed. And, once they fill it out, we pull the credit and we start our plan from there. If they're credit ready, it's all about the income and assets. So we will get all their documentation together, their W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, anything that's unique to their situation. And we have them, and we have all the technology that all these other companies have. So everything can be done electronically. It could all be uploaded into the portal. And then we just have a consultation with them to talk about what their hopes and dreams and goals are with the mortgage. How much of a home do they want to buy? Have they considered how much of a payment they want to keep as their budget? Because at the end of the day, I might qualify somebody for a $500,000 home, but they only want a $1,500 mortgage payment. So those two things don't add up. So I have to figure out, can we get them into a home with a $1,500 mortgage payment, or are we going to have to increase that buying power? And some of those conversations we have are tax advantages, right, of owning a home. And are they going to continue to have the standard deduction, or are they now going to be penalized? And maybe they'll take a little bit more money home on their paycheck if they increase their allowances. We have that kind of, dialogue with them and ask them to speak with their tax advisor to see if owning a home is going to actually yield them more money and save them tax. So, that's kind of the conversation. And then we figure out what that qualifying amount is, share that with their realtor, and then they're on their way.
So what's your ideal client?
Actually, I like first-time home buyers. I mean, it's not necessarily ideal, but I just have gotten to a point where, it's the most rewarding, right? So, people with a little bit of money, maybe $15,000, $20,000, $10,000, good credit, ready to go. They know what they want. They're educated about the process or willing to be educated on the process. And they don't have unrealistic expectations, right? So, you get somebody that might make $30,000, $40,000 a year and they want to buy a $300,000 house. It's not necessarily realistic. So it's having those conversations and people that understand budgeting, right? So it's hard for me to help people that just throw a budget out and they're just like, I don't care. I want that house. I don't care what the payment is. It doesn't matter to me. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. And I really, I want to work with people that understand how a budget should work and that it's not meant to be broken, so right. Yeah. But a first-time home buyer, we do a lot of government loans, whether it's down in Calvert County where we're doing a USDA loan, 100% financing, or, an FHA loan with 3.5% down. Hey, look, do I like jumbo loans? Of course. They tend to be a little bit harder. So that's fun for me because it's another challenge. Self-employed borrowers are difficult to calculate. So that's always fun to work with. It doesn't matter. We do all types of loans, and we do a lot of them. So it's, I wouldn't say there's my ideal client, but I'm just so used to working with first-time home buyers.
You've talked about a lot about education and educating your clients and potential clients. Are you doing any seminars for them where you're getting groups of people together, or are you just doing this kind of a more one-on-one type thing?
It's all both. We do some one-on-one stuff with our clients, but I do a lot of home buyers education with HOPE, which is Housing Options Planning Enterprises in Oxon Hill, and that is a HUD certified class, and I teach the mortgage portion. It's an 8-hour class, and I do the mortgage side of it. Not all of them, but I'm one of their educators. And we've been doing those on Zoom. We get 30 to 40 people in a class. They have them every other Saturday. I think there's a small fee for it. But then I'll do home buyer seminars with a partner, with a real estate agent, and we'll get go to the library or do it on Zoom, and just walk them through the process. What a real estate agent does. Typically, it revolves around how to get a mortgage and what programs are available. That's what people want to hear is, how can I get into a house if I only have $4,000 or $5,000 in my bank, and I only want to use $4,000 or $5,000 towards the purchase? How can I buy a home? Well, the fact of the matter is they can buy a home. The state has put out some fantastic programs, so it's just educating them on that. Because not all banks offer the program. So if you call up a bank, they might not talk about it, so they're not being educated on it. So we educate them on all the programs, including programs we don't do. So at least they have a knowledge of who they can call and get different, quotes for different programs.
What's the biggest challenge that you're facing right now?
Well, right now things are pretty good. I mean, interest rates are at all-time low. The programs are still available. I'd say the biggest challenge right now is self-employed borrowers who have been affected by, COVID shutdowns, and their revenue is just not there. So they're used to making, we look at their 2018 and 19 tax returns, and they might qualify on paper. But some of the new guidelines that have come out is that we still have to verify that they're making that same type of money today. And they might not be able to do that. So they're like, well, I qualified 3 months ago. I haven't changed anything with my tax returns, right? So what's the problem? And it's explaining that cash flow has to prove that you're still on pace to make what kind of money we're using to qualify you. So that's a huge challenge right now. The unemployments and the furloughs, that has been a challenge. We've had clients in the middle of a contract ready to go to closing and they got laid off. And they still want to buy the house because they either got unemployment or they got some government assistance, and you can't buy a house if you don't have a paying job. So that's been challenging. It's just difficult conversations because as people have dreams of buying a home and then it's just squashed because of all of this.
Right. So what haven't I asked you that you would like to share with our listeners?
I'd say that for those people that do own homes, it's a phenomenal time to refinance. You have the opportunity to cut your term down to 15 years. And you can certainly talk to them about the benefits of shaving off $100,000 in interest, right? Or plus. We have a client that's dropping from a 30-year at 4.25 down to a 15-year at 2.5, and they're shaving off $178,000 in interest. I mean, it's a remarkable amount of money. And you might feel a little pain because the payment might go up a little bit, but it's not as much as you think it would be. And to have an interest rate down in the twos, it's like free money. I mean, I'd rather put less money down and borrow at a low rate like that and then use my money to invest in the market. So those are a lot of the conversations we're having, is break-even point and how much can you save and what can you do with that money you're saving. It's putting a plan together for those refinances.
So if somebody wants to be able to reach out to you to maybe go to one of your seminars or just to kind of start the process, see what rates are and stuff like that, how do they get in touch with you?
They can email the Paquin team at firsthome.com or call me on my cell phone, 301-332-1589. That's my cell. You can reach me there anytime.
All right. Ryan, I appreciate your time today. Again, our podcast today has been with Ryan Paquin, First Home Mortgage. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.